Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talking with Tanya. So as you can see, I'm back in my studio. It feels so great to be back. Um, Today I'm going to be talking about an empath's journey, what it's like, the struggles, pros and cons, the science behind it. So me personally, I consider myself to be an empath, so I kind of want to share my perspective and my insights on this, not to kind of help maybe other empaths too out there who are potentially going to be watching this, and help other people who are not understand what it's like to be an empath. So, my personal journey as an empath and navigating people pleasing has been difficult. So, in this episode, I'm going to blend personal experience and science so listeners can understand both the emotional and the neurological aspects of being an empath. So, what really is being an empath? What does that mean? So, an empath is feeling what the other person feels deeply as if it was our own emotion. So that kind of motivates us to want to make other people feel happy and supported because we've experienced the pain of feeling deeply. Being an empath is a gift, but it's also a challenge, especially in relationships and long-term dynamics. So to put this into perspective, this is how empaths' mentality naturally is, right? They're able to so easily put themselves in other people's shoes. So someone who's had to walk or take the bus their whole life will deeply appreciate having a car. Doesn't need to be some fancy or high-end car, just something that gets them safely from point A to point B. Someone who's had to couch surf or never had a stable home will treasure the simple peace of having a place of their own, a space to rest their head and call home. Someone who survived on cup noodles and frozen pizza pockets will cherish the warmth of a home cooked meal. Someone who's never had a real family will feel immense gratitude for love and support and genuine presence when they finally find it. The more humbling experiences a person goes through, the more empathetic they become, because it is through experience that we gain wisdom. Information may create knowledge, but experience creates understanding. So people who've had life come easily to them may struggle to truly grasp what it feels like to face hardship. But most empaths have lived through deeply humbling experiences, if not all of them. So when they witness someone suffering, whether it's a loved one or a stranger, they don't just see pain, they feel it. Their bodies remember. The emotion etched into their memory allow them to instantly recall what that pain feels like. And because that, empaths often want to do everything in their power to make it stop, to soothe the person, to fix the problem, and to make the hurt go away. But this instinct, as compassionate as it is where the empath's biggest lesson begins. Learning when to help, when to hold space without losing themselves. So now I want to move on to the science behind empathy. So, and because there's an actual difference in how our brains look compared to the average person. I remember I even saw like memes going around at one point, like trends. They were kind of hurtful. I'm not gonna lie. They were making fun of empaths. Like there's one that said, "Oh, I feel sad because this person who's clearly crying is sad, so now I feel sad." Like or something like that. They're just kind of making it seem like it's obvious. These people's emotions are obvious. So we're going to know what they're feeling. But it's a lot more complex than that, right? Our brains are actually different than the average person. So growing up myself, right? So most empaths have had hardship, struggles in their lives. And I feel like, if not all of them, and I feel like that's what helped them gain this sense of empathy. For me personally, I grew up with emotionally reactive parents. You know, had to attune to their moods, their tone, and body language, and that became ingrained in my brain because I wanted to learn how to act in a way to kind of prevent these explosive emotional reactions in the home. And because all I wanted was peace. You want to create the peace as much as possible, so it became a survival instinct. So when it comes to empathy, the brain of an empath actually functions a little differently. Scientists have found that people who are highly empathetic have stronger activity in parts of the brain that process emotions and social connection, especially the mirror neuron system and the limbic system. Mirror neurons are special brain cells that light up when you experience something and when you see someone else experience it. So if someone around you is sad, anxious, or in pain, your brain doesn't just observe that emotion, it feels it too. That's why empaths often say they can sense someone's mood the moment they walk into a room. The limbic system, which includes areas like the amygdala and insula, is also more sensitive in empaths. These regions regulate emotional memory and intensity. So for empaths, emotional experiences, both their own and others, hit deeper and last longer in the body. On top of that, many studies show that empaths tend to have a more active anterior cingulate cortex and medial prefrontal cortex. the areas of the brain that are involved in compassion, self-reflection, and understanding other people's perspectives. This is what gives empaths an intuitive ability to just know how someone feels, even when nothing is said. But this heightened sensitivity comes with a cost because the empath's brain is constantly mirroring and processing emotional data. Their nervous system can become overstimulated. It's like having an emotional antenna that never turns off. This explains why empaths feel exhausted after being around too many people, or why they need solitude to recharge and reset their energy. So while empathy is a beautiful gift of connection, it's also a delicate balance, one that requires boundaries, grounding, and self-awareness to prevent emotional burnout. I know there's been times where I've struggled to remember that what I'm feeling is not my feelings. So I'm just like, you need to, and this is why being alone is so important, having moments to yourself, because it's like moments of reflection and to remember, hey, what am I feeling in this scenario? Remember that this is this person's problems. This is not my own. Because sometimes even when you try and help these people, they're not always deserving of it. So it's important to reflect and remember, where do I fit in this scenario? Now, some people might ask, why doesn't everyone who goes through harsh pasts or intense struggles become empathetic? Because you see, people who go through hardships and they don't care about people, or they might be bad. Well, first of all, we're all born differently. Some of us are naturally more sensitive than others. Even within the same family, not in my family, not everyone responds to hardship the same way. For example, I came from a challenging household, but my siblings and I all experienced it differently. Not all of us became empathetic in the same way. I do notice that we all are good, inherently good people. We all have levels of empathy, but we don't all express it the same way. So I know, like, I have an older brother who is like not very expressive in his emotions, but he will lecture me, he'll preach to me. Sometimes I don't even want to hear it, but I know he's coming from a good place. He just wants me to do good in life. So I can see his empathy in that way. There are a lot of variables at play as well. Even if one of us doesn't seem outwardly empathetic, there's still a level of empathy within each of us. It just shows up differently. Another factor is the type of trauma someone experiences, right? I think this factors into play. This is my personal take. I'm just thinking out loud here. In my case, my parents could be hard on me, but I recognize that their actions came from a place of care. Like, they were very angry and bitter and always emotionally reactive all the time, but that didn't stop them from getting up in the morning, early in the morning, you know, fix us our food. My mom cooked 3 times a day. She had to work. There was times where my mom worked late at night, having to get up early in the morning to take us to school. Like, so they were all very angry and bitter and just like feeling like they were super unhappy, and they were constantly arguing with each other. But that didn't stop them from moving in life to provide for us and to care for us, make sure we had everything we need and always had food in our belly. So I knew it came from a place of care. They didn't always know the best way to communicate or express themselves, but underneath it all, I can sense their love and the effort they made for our family. On the other hand, I know there's people out there who face trauma where the care is absent. Parents struggling with addiction, neglect, or abuse. In those situations, I personally feel it's easier to develop resentment or even hatred towards the world because their experiences teaches them that nobody cares. So the people and environment around us also make a big difference. Even in my hardships, I had people who validated my experience. Growing up, I had an older sister who I could talk to and go to towards my problems. Even she would help, talk to like my parents for me. So that support shaped how I processed my struggles. She made me feel validated. Like I'm going through it, and now I know I'm going through it. For someone without any support or care, it's understandable that they might develop bitterness or cynicism. So I'll be honest, this is just my reflection and speculation. I don't know if there's any research on this. I'd love to look into it more. But I think it's such a fascinating topic, why hardship creates empathy in some people and resentment in others. It really speaks to the complexity of the human experience. Okay, so now I want to talk about how my gift makes it easier for people to guilt trip me or frame me as the villain when setting boundaries. Because I'm so easygoing and I love doing things for people, when it's time for me to finally start saying no, I feel like it's so easy for people to just like lash out on me because they know I can take it. Or not even lash out, or to make me feel bad. Like, like, I'm going through this. If you were my friend, you'd be there for me, kind of deal. So, like recently, I've had a friend that I've been going out of my way and helping all the time, and I just got a tension headache. And I realize I get these headaches when I'm overthinking, overworking, overloading myself. So it's like my body's way of waking me up and saying, "Hey, you matter too." So this friend reached out to me again and wanted me to come over and help her out, and I finally told myself, like, no, I have to say no. I have to put myself first. I've been having a lot on my plate recently with, like, oh, another thing is, like, speaking for my parents on their behalf. So sometimes, like, my mom wants to share something with my father, and my father wants to share something with my mother, but I'm the one communicating. I'm the bridge because they don't speak to each other. So that can carry a burden on me. But that's because sometimes it involves saying something to the other person where the other person might not like to hear. So who's going to feel that emotion when they hear it? Me. And that could just be so overwhelming sometimes. And I just wish, like, they would just communicate between each other. Um, but yeah, so that I've been dealing with that. I just got a new job, so I've been having to learn the job, and that in itself is like overwhelming, overstimulating. And then I have my podcast I have to work on because this is like my passion, something I want to continue to improve. And I actually have to sit down and make time to kind of put the outlines together and the information I want to speak on, brainstorming new ideas. And so my mind's always working. And yesterday I kind of just, and it's still lingering a little bit, my headache. I got it yesterday, but so so I was sitting in my hammock yesterday, and I was just thinking, this is my time to myself right now, just to relax. Don't think, just chill, just be, just. And I was like, I need to find more of a balance of putting myself time for myself in areas of my life, and yeah, empathy without boundaries leads to burnout and emotional fatigue. One of the biggest challenges I found when it comes to saying no is doing it with people who've known me for a long time. Over the years, like, I've learned about myself, I've challenged myself, and I've built up a lot of strength. So I've learned to stand up for myself, to speak my truth, and to set boundaries. But I've noticed that I'm not all the way there yet. Because when I interact with people from my past, especially from my past, old friends, family members, people who knew the old me, the one who's always hiding in her room, scared to speak up, people pleasing, and just didn't really express herself, that past version of me resurfaces when I'm speaking to people from my past. When I'm around those familiar energies, my body remembers. It brings me back to that old me. The resistance, the overthinking, the misunderstandings, the defensiveness, it all comes rushing back. And in those moments, I'm being asked to communicate from this new version of myself, even as those old emotions resurface. That's been one of my biggest lessons lately. Learning how to respond as the person I am now, not the person I used to be. And I'll be honest, it's not easy. If it was easy, I'd be doing it already. These are the people I still care deeply about. So it's hard to express my truth without feeling like I might hurt their feelings or make them feel shame, regret, or rejection. Because as an empath, I feel those emotions too. But I also know deep down that this is the path to liberation, to speak my truth with compassion, emotional intelligence, and empathy. It takes strength and it takes practice, but each time I do it, I'm reclaiming a little more of myself. And that's what healing looks like. Not perfection, but progress. So, why is it so hard to break old patterns, especially in long term relationships? I want to talk about the struggles that empaths face when it comes to saying no. Because when you feel so deeply, when you can literally sense what someone else is feeling, it's hard to not want to make them feel accepted, appreciated, and cared for. The last thing you want to do is disappoint or reject someone. You ever, like, had a project or, like, something that really excites you and you want help doing it, right? Like, you have this task and you're just like, you would be such a big help, or you got a new job and you need someone to fill this role for this job, and it would really help you get yourself out there. So you go to this person, you're just like, I really need your help. Would you do this for me? That excitement, that built up an excitement. If someone came to me with that, I'm just like, how can I say no? How can I say no to that? Even if I have a full plate, even when I don't feel like doing it, like, I can already sense the disappointment that would come if I were to say no. So that's what makes saying no so difficult. And when you finally come to a point in your healing, when you do start saying no, it can still come with guilt from yourself or from others. I remember saying no to a friend who have already helped so much. And I was like, I need to choose me finally. And I left the conversation. I was driving home, and I just remember feeling that lingering guilt. Like it was overshadowing the sense of like happiness and rest that I wanted to feel being able to go home and relax. But it was just like I don't like, do I turn back? Do I turn around? Do I just say yes? Like, but in that moment I told myself that is not that is not my emotions to carry. That is not me that I am feeling. Sometimes you just have to remind yourself. Because of our loving, understanding nature, it's so easy for people to guilt trip us, whether they mean to or not. And as empaths, we tend to avoid uncomfortable emotions, especially the feeling that we might upset someone. So instead of honoring our boundaries, we sometimes say yes, even when our whole body is screaming no. It's not that we don't know our limits, it's that we feel too much to enforce them. So this is why it's important to have the need for self-awareness. You know, for example, me in the car, I was telling myself, those are not my emotions to carry. My emotions is I'm happy and I'm gonna be happy. I deserve this. I've already done so much for this person. I'm gonna go home, chill, and relax. So there's a need for self-awareness, for patience, and consistency in this process. One of the ways I've learned to say no and to accept the resistance that sometimes comes with it is by explaining why. In the beginning of your healing journey, not everyone's going to understand you, and that's okay. The people who truly care about you will take the time to listen and respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, well, you'll start to realize maybe they're not meant to be in your next chapter because I'm tired of feeling overburdened. So I'm trying. I think it's time. And I always think I'm such a beautiful, compassionate person. I feel like I do more than the average person. So I deserve to be happy too. And if you fail to realize that, you're not meant to be in my next chapter. When I began saying no, I found it helpful to share what I was really feeling, right? I think the best way to have someone else who's not an empath understand is by explaining how you're feeling so that they can understand how overextended I am, burnt out, and tired I've become by just always showing up for everyone else. I recently told my friend, the one I was talking about, because I was house sitting for her, that it's through my hardships, it's through my struggles, my suffering, my tough life experience that I became the way I am, deeply empathetic. That's why I always want to help others because I know what it's like to feel those deep levels of pain. But that same gift can be heavy to carry because when you don't know how to say no, you end up constantly helping everyone, your friends, your family, coworkers, strangers, even. And before you know it, there's a little time or a little energy for me. And that's what I explained to my friend. I opened up and I said, "You can see," because she knew a lot about me before even me helping her out. And I would explain to her like the heavy burdens I feel like I was carrying in my family, always trying to like please everyone and do so much for everybody. And I said, I barely have time for me. I want time for me. And that's when she finally realized and she understood that I needed time for myself. So she didn't feel as bad. And you know, I still felt the guilt. I still felt the sadness because I like wanted to be there for her, but like I I shouldn't feel that bad. And you know, like you just got to remind yourself, I'm important too. So for me, that realization hit hard when it came to my podcast. That's when it really started to make me think about things and shift my perspective because I pour so much time, emotion, and energy into this podcast. It's something that means a lot to me. It's not just a hobby, it's a piece of my heart, but I started to feel frustrated when I noticed how easily my creative energy was being drained by commitments I made with other people. So I noticed my headspace is like different when it comes to my creativity. When I feel like full of love and energy and like I'm well rested and I've had time to myself versus when I'm burnt out, I feel like I don't have that same creative spark. So I like was getting so frustrated because I feel like people weren't really understanding what this podcast was meant to me. And sometimes I had people would like want to take my time. Like I know I'm home and now I started working, so now it's like difficult to have to do both things. So now I have to find a balance. I have even less time on my plate. But before that, like I was putting a lot of time and effort into my podcast, and I think people they didn't know. That's the thing. I didn't explain to them. That's why it's important to express how you're feeling. But they didn't know like the time and effort and energy I was putting into this and what it meant to me. And I felt like people were taking my time and energy, and I'm just like, I need time for this. I really want to put effort into this, and you're you're taking that from me, and you don't know you are, and I'm holding resentment for it. So that's why I need to express myself. What I've learned is that when I take a moment to explain this, to share why I'm trying to protect my time, my energy, and something deeply important to me, the people who truly care will understand. So those are the people. You can't go wrong with honesty. When you express how you feel with love and clarity, the right people won't hold it against you. They'll get it. And that's how you'll start attracting relationships that honor your boundaries, not test them. Another gift, I guess you can say, about being an empath is that you can feel your mistakes through other people. There were times when I didn't always pick up on social cues growing up, I feel, but I can sense a shift in someone's energy, a little change that told me that I might have said something off or unclear, or like they just didn't understand where I was coming from. Instead of just hearing what went wrong, that I felt it. And that helps me because a lot of people don't communicate to you that they're like bothered or like that was like weird what I said. So it's like, it helped me fine tune the way I communicate to express myself in a way that makes sense, that's kind, and still feels authentic to who I am. Okay, so like where I am now, I feel like it's crazy. It's still a balance. It's still a challenge because like I feel like I've come such a long way, yet I have a headache for a reason. I'm like still overloading on stuff, but I'm also adjusting to a new routine. I think that also has something to do with it. You know, I have a friend who's going through it a little bit, so that's like kind of out of the blue. So I'm still learning to balance, how I give my time and energy to people. I always like to keep in mind too to be very grateful for everything, like my parents. Uh, Sometimes life can get so hectic, and you have like I get so busy, but that's something I like to keep in mind. Is like I still want to enjoy my parents. They're like getting on the older side, and I'm always trying to make time to go and visit them, to talk to them, and sometimes that can get overwhelming because like it takes time, you know? So like that's the thing. I'm learning the balance of where do I fit in my time, with everything. And but you know what? So I can't complain because there are times like I wasn't working for a while. There was a lot of time that I had to like really enjoy myself, hang out with my friends and, you know, have fun. So sometimes life just throws curveball at you and fills up your plate, and it's just lessons that I have to learn. That's okay. So the journey from people pleasing to boundaries is challenging, but it's rewarding. I think the more I learn to stand up for myself and express myself, I think more uh, the more you're gonna attract the right relationships and find emotional fulfillment. I think that's why I don't mind this gift of being an empath because I feel like it's gonna or already has attracted such emotionally fulfilling relationships. Like I feel like the relationships I've cultivated are through authenticity, and it's just like allowed me to be myself. And like I just like the people I have in my life do truly appreciate me. So like even though I feel like sometimes I do a lot for people, I know at the end of the day they do truly appreciate me and my presence and who I am as a person. So I don't mind, these challenges, just having to learn to navigate through them. So at the end of the day, I feel like embracing my empathy and healthy boundaries, it's going to lead to deeper self-love, authentic relationships, and emotional freedom. You know, an affirmation I want to leave you guys with is my empathy is a gift, and I honor it with love, wisdom, and healthy boundaries. And for the people who are not empaths, the best way I can help you become more empathetic towards others is imagine wanting something so badly but not being able to have it, right? That ache, that longing. Now realize that that's how some people feel about the things you already have. Even if you feel like you don't have much, if you're healthy and able bodied, there are people out there who dream of simply having that. That's why gratitude matters so much. There's a quote I read once and it said, "A healthy person has 1,000 wishes, but a sick person only has one." And it really just puts things into perspective. So I would just want to leave you with this. Be kind to your empath friends. You'll know who they are and don't take them for granted because one day they might learn their worth and set boundaries. So thank you again for coming and talking with Tanya. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Peace out.